and today I am sitting on the floor for a couple reasons. One, this is a Q&A video and I thought it would be just a little bit more personal if I was sitting on the ground. Two, I have my computer right here so I can look at all of your questions while I answer them to the camera. And three, this is going to be a really long video because YouTube says I have 66 whole comments on the video that I asked for questions on. And while I know not all of those comments are actually questions, and there's going to be a little bit of overlap, that's still a lot of ground to cover, and I want to cover all of it. So if I happen to miss your question during this video, please put it down in the comments so I can answer it in the comments. Because while I tried my best to get everyone copy-pasted over into the document I'm using, a couple questions might have slipped through the cracks, and I'm sorry about that. I think I'm just going to go down the list chronologically because it feels like a lot of work to sort all of these, and I don't know how much sorting them would actually bring the video more order. So I'm just going to straight down. Our first set of questions is from Guy and me, and they're asking a three-parter. Their first part is it possible to have alters that never fully front but can influence the host with their presence? For example, a protector that never fully fronts but pushes the host to get through negative situations, or a little that never takes control of the body, but the host will find themselves age-sliding due to the little's influence. There's a couple different aspects to my answer, one of which would be passive influence is definitely a thing when an alter is not in full control of the body, but they are influencing whichever alters at the front. Say if I was fronting and Montana was kind of in the back, and Montana was influencing me and my decisions and my actions. That's a thing that can happen. There's also a phenomena in the OSCD1 subgroup where you can end up with a system full of alters that never completely front and only show themselves through this passive influence that I just described. So yes, it is totally possible to have alters whose only interaction with the outside world is through passive influencing another alter. Their second question is it possible to not experience or stop experiencing amnesia between alters? The answer is yes. If you have full amnesia between alters, the goal of therapy is to increase communication and decrease that amnesia. I can't tell you exactly how to do that because it's all wrapped up in increasing communication and getting to know your system better and processing trauma. Also, it's just kind of a different path for every system. And even more further, we're an OSCD1B system, so that means we don't experience full amnesia, and I don't have an intimate knowledge of how to directly decrease that full blackout amnesia. Their third question and their subgroup is it possible for alters to all communicate within the headspace as if they were present together? The answer is yes. This is actually something we're currently working towards in therapy right now, and oftentimes in situations where systems construct headspaces, this is one of the main goals or reasons behind constructing that headspace, to kind of create a meeting place where the whole system can come together and talk together as a group about issues and conflicts that might be going on externally. So now we're going to move on to the next question. I know I said the name for the last person, but I think I'm going to continue from this point on without names because I absolutely suck at pronouncing things. And I will pronounce your names incorrectly, and I feel really bad. So, our next question is, can some of your alters have names and others not? Answer is yes. There's a possibility that alters just have not picked their names yet, but there's also the possibility that some alters just prefer to exist without a name attached to them. It's very common for there to be periods of time after new splits for alters to take that time and choose and decide on a name if they don't come with one originally. So yes, some alters can have names and some may not have names, whether temporarily or permanently. Our next question is, what are the genders and pronouns and sexuality of those who are comfortable sharing? I'm assuming from my system. I know you mentioned a few already, but I'm just wondering if this has changed at all. Nope, this has not changed at all. Actually, if you go look at our YouTube information, you'll get a short list of all of the alters in the system and kind of our general roles and stuff. But I'll go down our list of genders and pronouns. So first alter on the list is me, Silver. I am non-binary and I use they, them pronouns, and I identify as a panromantic asexual. Next is Mia. Mia, we joke, is the token cishet because she is cisgender heterosexual female. Montana is a AAA battery, so that means asexual, aromantic, and agender. She doesn't really care what pronouns you use and feels detached from all of them, so you can just like flip between she, they, he, whatever. I think she's expressed to me that she feels more comfortable with she because that's what's been used in the past for her, so she more readily recognizes that people are addressing her when she, her pronouns are used, but she doesn't actually identify with them. So she, they is kind of the route to go with Montana, but they don't really care at all. Our next alter is Iris, and she is our little. Because she is so young, she does not have any current gender and sexuality labels, but we use she, her pronouns for her. Ivy is a cis woman, and I have yet to communicate with her about her sexuality, so that's currently unknown as well. I look forward to talking to her more about it though. Our next alter is Chelsea. I know not as much about Chelsea. She's cisgender and probably some sort of queer when it comes to sexual attraction, but I still have yet to get to know her, and I'm looking forward to it. Our next alter is Ada. Ada is bisexual and some form of queer when it comes to gender. I don't know if they have picked a term, but they prefer they, them, or she, her pronouns. Lorianne is a cis woman who uses she, her pronouns and doesn't like to use sexuality labels. Lily is also a cis woman, and I have yet to communicate with her about her sexuality, so that's currently unknown. The next question is, I know I already wrote one, but do you all have favorite words? And that's a very interesting question. I have never actually thought about favorite words, and I don't know if anyone else has had favorite words. I've tried sending it out in the Headspace a couple times, but I haven't gotten too many answers back. So I think the answer is no, we don't have favorite words. The next question is, are you always aware of what all your headmates are up to in the inner world? For example, if an alter was in the inner world and decided to make a pizza, would whoever is fronting always know right away that they were making that pizza? If so, does it ever get disorienting for whoever's in front to have that extra activity going on in the background? Overall, this varies system by system, but for us specifically, I'm very much locked out of the headspace when I'm fronting. I have no idea what's going on, or what alters are doing, and only when I have to like sit down and center myself and really like make an effort to figure out what's going on in the headspace. I know this varies alter by alter. I haven't really talked too much about it with other alters, this question specifically, but I know Montana has a better idea of what's going on in the headspace than I do at all times. So yeah, hope that answers your question. Next question is, how many alters do you have? Currently, I believe there are 9. There is a suspected 10th though, and we are still waiting for communication back. This person also asks, I've heard of dissociated refer to an inner world. I don't know if all people with the ID have one, and if so, what is yours like? Not all people with the ID or OSD actually have an inner world or a headspace. The words are interchangeable. We didn't come with one, so that's a prime example right there. We actually had to manually build our own headspace. Technically we did come with kind of like a little inner world thing, but it was basically just like a black void with nothing in it. It still exists like kind of under our current headspace, and we'll probably talk more in depth about this in another video, but yeah, it's definitely not all systems come with one. Some systems do have a headspace or an inner world that like loads automatically, or where alters can interact and do that thing, but specifically for us, did not come that way, had to be manually built. Our next question is, as a fellow OSD 1B system, we're curious about how y'all experience the shared memory. Can't remember if y'all have talked about this in a video. For us, pretty much everyone knows everything unless they've been dormant for a while, but also we sometimes experience little memory blips between switches. We'll switch while driving, and whoever switches will forget we need to go to the grocery until much later. That is something we experience as well. Even though we don't have complete amnesia between parts, overall we are a very forgetful person. And I like to describe it as when someone else fronts, I am at a much, much higher chance of forgetting what they did or what they wanted to do than when I fronted. And me forgetting things that I want to do or what I have did is already at a high chance, so we're not even gonna go there. But yes, it also takes a little bit of processing time, so if someone else switches, if they have to go instantly into another activity or into like doing something that takes a lot of brain power, oftentimes they'll kind of lose a grasp of whoever was fronting first and what they were up to. Whereas if they take like 30 seconds to kind of sit and like process and like, okay, where am I? Let's reorient myself. Let's go through these memories that I have now. Then they kind of get a better hold on the situation overall. Our next question, oh, there's a couple. They're about my cats. Question number 1 is, what's my cat's name and how did you get your cat? I actually have 2 cats at home. Their names are Max and Taboo. Max is my big dumb boy, and he's very, very big, and he is just a giant sack of flour that is basically a dog. And Taboo is the teeny little weird girl who only purrs when she licks plastic and only meows when we do the dishes. I love them both dearly. The next question in this list is, how did you get your cat? Taboo was a rescue, so we adopted her at about like a year and a half old, and she is very stunted, so she was definitely the runt of the litter. And then we got Max. Max is a retired breeder. So they're both Bengal cats because me and most of my family are very allergic to cats, but they're both very good cats. There's more questions after this. How did you come up with the name of your channel? The name of our channel is just our system name. We're the ring system. The channel is the ring system. And then the next one is, how does your system adapt to being in a new environment like a home instead of school, or one home versus another home? This is kind of like a complicated question to pull apart because the 3 places you named, school, home, and other home, I'm assuming home like as in the place that I grew up, so school, place that I grew up, and other home that I'm in right now, all have very different attitudes about where they are. Obviously the home where I grew up isn't the best situation all the time, so there's a lot of extra dissociation in there, and honestly we don't adapt well in that place. But oftentimes during sessions of moving, I get really, really stressed, and when I get really, really stressed, I think it's a great idea to front all the time, which is not good for anyone, including me. So overall, we just get stressed. I try to front a lot. The system breaks down after like a week and a half, and we get really switchy. It's a mess. So no, we don't adapt well. But after a couple weeks, it all shakes out. This move was a lot easier, moving into the house that I am now, because my partner actually moved in with us for 10 days as we were in the moving process, so that kind of helped settle things down and reduce the stress, which was really nice. But now they're gone and I miss them. This is a tangent. Okay, and the last question on this list is, what's your favorite season? That's changing right now. I think my favorite season is spring, because now that I'm on the East Coast, I actually have a spring, whereas when I was in the Midwest, spring lasted about 2 weeks and was really, really mushy. But I think actually having a spring and not going from like 40-degree to 80-degree weather in the span of 2 days is really nice. So I think it's changing to be spring now, just because of me moving across the country. So now we're at our next person. What is everyone's favorite animal? I don't know everyone's favorite animal. I don't know everyone's favorite animal off the top of my head, but I'm going to do my best. My favorite animal is technically a dragon, even though it's not really an animal. Mia is really into falcons and hawks. I think her top 3 favorite raptors is peregrine falcons, golden eagles, and red-tailed hawks. I don't think Montana has a favorite animal. Iris's favorite animal is a turtle. Ivy, I don't know her well enough to know her favorite animal without talking to her about it. I don't know if Chelsea has a favorite animal. If Chelsea does, I get the sense that it's something furry. I'm unsure of Ada's favorite animal. Lorian's favorite animal is a red fox. Red panda? Lorian's favorite animal is a red panda. And Lily, I think Lily likes robins. I actually have to check. Our next question is from someone who is rather young, and they think they have DID or OCD, but obviously don't have systemic communication yet. I totally get that. I was in that same spot myself when I was that age. And then they said all of their lived experience aligns perfectly with DID and OCD, and how do they know if it's all in my head or if it's just real, and they won't have access to a psychologist for another 2 years. And the worst part is the doubt and the not knowing. And they want advice about the doubt and the not knowing. And I wish I had better advice than the advice I'm about to give you. But my advice is that there's really nothing you can do, and it sucks. You just have to kind of remain confident in yourself that eventually you're going to get there, and eventually you're going to find a specialist and a therapist, and they're going to help you sort out whether you do or don't have DID or OCD. And right now, your main goal should just be living and just experiencing the things that you experience. And if you happen to find things that overall improve your health, do those things. My advice is to try to avoid labels, because labels are just a name for the experience you're having. So focus on the experience you are having and focus on the things that help make you feel better in in relation to your mental health. And then know that even if you end up mislabeling yourself, things will eventually shake out, and you'll eventually know what you have, and it eventually will all make sense, and you'll get there, I promise. I got there, it took me so many years, but I'm here now, and it will work out, I promise. And I wish I had better advice than there's really nothing you can do other than hold out hope and wait. And I really wish you luck on your journey. It's a hard one, but I know you'll reach the end someday. Our next question is, what were the signs of you having OSTD1B when you were younger that you might not have realized until now? I actually filmed a short clip on this exact question as a collaboration with Acrylic and Aether. I ended up like rooting around a lot. The problem is I don't have too much memory of when I was younger, so it's very hard to point out the signs and symptoms when you can't remember your childhood. But I think the one that I really touched on is that when I was young, so like around 10 to 13, I had this phase where I was really into art, and I was that little tiny like early middle school like artist on DeviantArt. But like, you know, at that phase you like create a whole bunch of cute little characters and you're like, wow, this is what I would be if I was like a dragon in the forest living my life, whatever. Really cute like 12-year-old fluffy stuff. When I was in that phase, like me and all my other like cute little groups of like 12-year-old friends all made like cute little characters of like, wow, this is what I would be if I was an otter living out in the river. I don't know, whatever, like middle school fantasies. Everyone else created like just one. It's like, oh, this would be me. But I created multiple, and I said all of them were me, but I didn't relate to all of them. And it was kind of a weird experience. And that ended up like being a pointer that led me to go, oh hey, what is going on here? Because more characters were being created than individuals, because I thought it was just me here. So I guess that's the only really thing that I can point out that like really was like a sign or symptom that like something was going on, because I can't really remember too much else. And what I can remember is full of other stuff. Sorry I don't have more content on that question. And then we have a whole bunch of questions about how I first realized there was other people in the system. For this whole set of questions, I've actually gotten so many questions about how I discovered the system and how I first met the alters that I think I've decided I'll just make a whole nother video on it. And I'm sorry, but that video might be a little while coming, because I do want to tell my story properly, and the fact is a lot of the story isn't quite complete, and I really want to find ways to articulate it that come off well, because there's a lot of parts of my story that are very much not the norm, and I want to be able to present those in a way where people won't see it and go, wow, this person is faking. I mean, obviously I'm diagnosed now and everything's good and I'm seeing a therapist and a specialist regularly, but I'm constantly worried about that, and I know even like just a video after I put out a video about faking, I'm dealing with this, but it's less of my own invalidation and more of I don't want to have to deal with those other people. So I'm gonna try to find a way to do that, and it might take a little bit of time, but it'll get there eventually, because I know it's a much wanted topic to be explained. Our next question is, how did you guys get / choose your names? This one is kind of different, because each of us have different ways of choosing our name. I chose my name because it was an internet nickname that I had for the longest time, and I actually developed it right about the time that I split off from the rest of the system. So in those spaces, I was being called both my birth name and Silver, and as I was splitting, I identified a lot more with Silver than the birth name, so I ended up just adopting Silver as my own name, and I used it throughout the rest of my time on the internet. Montana chose her name as I was discovering her, because she didn't really care. So as I discovered her, I was like, what's your name? You kind of need a name. What should I refer to you as? And she, at the time we were watching a show that had like a group of people that she empathized with a lot, in that they were disconnected from their own emotions, and a lot of them went by state names, so she chose another state that wasn't listed for her own name. So that's kind of Montana's story. Mia has always had her name, Mia, Iris, Ivy, and Chelsea all kind of came with their names. But I remember Ada, when she first made herself known to me, she actually spent a while going through, what is it, like babynames.org? Like, you know, one of those sites that's just like a giant database of like names, and going through and picking her own name, which her full name is Adalyn, but she goes by Ada a lot. Lorianne got her name because she's an interject, and it's very, very similar to the person that she was interjected from. She just changed the phonetics of the first syllable. So she was interjected from someone named Marianne, so she just changed it to Lorianne. And Lily came with her name too. So that's kind of how we all got our own names. We have a next set of questions from the Alexandrite system, who I see around a lot. Hi guys! The first question is, Silver, who is the first alter in the system that you met? I just mentioned this. It was Montana. I met Montana when I was 13 or 14. I wasn't sure what was going on at the time, but she was the first alter that I met and was the reason why I realized I was a system. Specifically because her and I are just so different. I'm so full of emotion and Montana is just so devoid of emotion. It was very, very obvious to me, especially with the factor of thrown in emotional amnesia, that something was up and something was going on. Their next question is Lorianne. I think Lorianne, who we should address this to, how do you feel about being an alter with an accent different to the body's accent? I didn't know Lorianne had an accent. I'll have to ask her, and I'll edit her clip in right here if she records it. They also said we have someone in our system who sounds a lot like you, and she's sometimes embarrassed about it. I don't know Lorianne's answer off the top of my head, but I think Montana, who you haven't seen yet, has a very, very specific vocal tone, and she doesn't feel embarrassed about it at all, but that's also Montana. So I'll see if I can get Lorianne to record a clip after this.
Hello all, and it's Lorianne, and I am here just back from therapy. Silver just finished therapy and I just switched out again. We've been a little bit switchy in and out, so if my voice isn't properly right in a video about answering a question about my own accents, that's why, because I just got here and we're very blurry. But I was told from Silver that I have a question to answer about my accent and how it differs from the body's, how the body normally talks and whether I'm embarrassed about that at all. And I guess my answer to that question would be that I'm not embarrassed about it, but obviously it is something I'm asked when around people who do tangentially know us and would notice the vocal difference, just simply for safety reasons. And so we don't have our cover blown as being a system to people that we aren't out to. I mean, it can always be passed off as I'm trying to learn new accents and I'm trying to try different accents and like vocal tones, but especially when it's repetitively used and a repetitively used vocal pattern, people tend to get a little bit confused, and that's when like excuses and explanations can't be nearly as useful. So obviously, yes, it's masked around people who know us, but we aren't out to. But I don't think embarrassed is the proper term to use about how I feel about it. I very much enjoy expressing myself as I do, and I really appreciate the space that Silver has built on YouTube to express that. Thank you so much for listening. I'll get back to the rest of the Q&A and go back to walking home. Have a good one.
The third question that they have is, for the Ring system as a whole, why do you think it is that OSTD systems are far less represented on YouTube and as a whole? Also, if you know any other OSTD channels, that would be nice. I think it is because DID is just a little bit more salient in the minds of the population. Because obviously there was a transition between it used to be multiple personality disorder and now it's dissociative identity disorder, and DID is a little bit less of a mouthful than OSTD. Also, OSTD is a broad category, whereas OSTD 2, 3, and 4 don't even include systems. When the general populace thinks about people having alters or people having multiple personalities, they either think directly of DID or they think of MPD and then they go, oh wait, it got changed to DID. I also think it's because, specifically in the media, DID has those full amnesia blackouts, and the media likes using them as a catch of like, wow, this person is so mentally ill, TM, which I don't like at all, obviously. But I think it's just because OSTD in general can be much more varied, and also it's a bit of a mouthful, and I don't know. I think specifically on YouTube, it's just a little bit random because it's kind of like luck of the draw of who decides to make a YouTube channel. I don't think there's enough active DID and OSDD YouTubers to have a proper balance between DID and OSDD on YouTube. It's like if you flip a coin 10 times, it might land on heads 3 times and tails 7 times. It doesn't mean that the random average is not 50%, it just means you only flip the coin 10 times. And that's kind of how I feel how it is on YouTube right now. We're only having so many systems make YouTube channels, and just by random chance we ended up with more DID people than OSDD people. I do know of another OSDD channel. They're a friend of the Acrylic and Aethers. They're the Amplexus system, and I will link them down in the comments for you. They're really nice. The next question is from Montana. Do you ever think you'll try baking again? Her answer is no. I don't even need to ask her. She doesn't enjoy it. I know you're referencing a really old video of ours, and that's the only reason why she baked those is because they were quite literally already started, and she's like, well, I can't exactly put these ingredients away now, might as well. So I don't think she would ever try to start baking on her own. If she decides to record a clip on this question, I'll include it here, but I don't think she will because she knows that I know exactly what her answer would be. Our next question is, are you in therapy / on medication? Why or why not, and what has your experience been? I am currently in therapy, but not on medication. It's just kind of like how our disorder and comorbidities present, in that it would be hard to figure out a good medication schedule, and I think we are doing well enough when a problem crops up and dealing with it in therapy that we don't need medication for long-term issues. But that's still something that's kind of up in the air. Our experience, obviously we have no experience with medication. I've never been on meds. But our experience with therapy has been overall really good. We had a general therapist for many, many years in high school. She was really, really nice, but kind of hard to talk to because our parents were the ones that originally set us up with her. And then we had 2 sets of specialists in high school. First guy didn't even believe DID existed, so I had a really crappy session with him, and then never saw him again. And the next specialist I saw actually believed that it was a valid disorder, and she saw us for a couple weeks and then decided that the place we were at, we didn't need to start trauma processing, and I was doing well enough with my general at the time. After we moved to college, we ended up with a DID specialist long-term instead of just a general specialist, and I absolutely love her, and it has been a wonderful experience. Yeah. The next question from this asker is, what is your living situation, i.e. living with parents, friends, / on your own? Currently, I am living with 2 of my friends. I was living with my partner for 10 days, but now that has turned over into being me with 2 of my friends. Our next question from the asker is, if every person in the system had 3 wishes, what would they be? And I'm nervous about this one because I don't know everyone well enough to be able to say this, and I don't think everyone will want to front and record a video clip on this either. I feel like I'm just kind of want to go through this Q&A mostly as me, and then I can ask other alters to record clips because we don't switch nearly as much as some other systems, and trying to get everyone to record clips and have everyone switch before we upload this video would mean it would take a very long time. So I think I'm gonna change this question to, what are my 3 wishes for the system? My 3 wishes are, I wish for better communication because that's always good. I wish for smoother switches and less headaches, because being able to do that is very important, and switch headaches are the worst. And then my 3rd wish, I think, would be that everyone feels valued in the system, because I try. Because everyone deserves that, and that's the truth. Cool. Our next person asks is, what would you say to systems who are feeling hopeless and beyond help, and that they'll never truly be accepted in this world? Oof. That's a hard one, because sometimes I feel that way myself. I guess my best advice would be to find the people who accept you for who you are, and that includes your whole entire system. and then to never let them go. Is to create your own little pocket in the world that accepts you and loves you for who you are as a system, regardless of what the rest of the world thinks. And that's very hard to do. But one of the easiest ways to do it is to just be open about it, and then you'll know very quickly which people in your life won't end up in that little pocket. And then as you be open about it to people you meet and as you walk through your life, the good people will come out of the woodwork and find you. Especially the good people who relate to you and emphasize with you and have their own issues with mental health and know how to be nice and how to be accepting and how to love you the way you are. Yeah. Be true to yourself, and then the good people will come find you. Our next question from our next asker is, can any of you take pain or memories from another personality so that they don't feel it or remember it anymore? I actually don't know the answer to this, and I'll have to ask Ada. This is one where I think I'm actually gonna have her film a little video clip for this if she wants. But to my best of my knowledge, the answer is probably yes. I don't have too much to elaborate on that because I do not know. You guys are really just seeing how much I have left to learn about my own system in this video.
Hello, my name is Montana, and today, even though I have not yet made an introduction video, Silver has asked me very pointedly to record a short message about a specific question that was asked for a Q&A. Specifically, can a single alter take the pain or memories from another alter in the system? And the first thing that might come up in a discussion about this is the fact that we are an OSDB1B system, which means that all memories, regardless of alter, are kept intact. Therefore, anyone who is at the front has all of the memories of what has happened to this body and those who inhabit it. Therefore, even if I am fronting during a stressful situation, if Silver happens to front later in the day, they will know about what happened during that stressful situation and they will have those memories. Because I am fronting in that situation, and because we have emotional amnesia between alters, it means that Silver will not experience the emotional pain that came with that specific moment. I feel like, specifically, this question is not addressing whether another alter fronting can impede the emotional pain or the memories of another alter, though, because that's just a question specifically around switching. I feel like this is a question addressing that if Silver is fronting in a painful emotional moment, can another alter then alter her memories and the emotional pain that she has surrounding that moment and take it away from her so she no longer has to deal with it and process it. And I believe that, and because we aren't a DID system, some DID systems, and maybe even some OSDD systems, can pull this off. But for us, if someone is decidedly 100% fronting in an emotionally stressful moment, no one can take those memories or those emotional pain from that alter as they have directly experienced them. But there are some workarounds to this issue. What has to happen is, in a distressing moment, we either need to switch directly into the front and put Silver inside the system, or there's a couple other options in there, such as either I or Ada or another alter can gently switch into the co-front with Silver and just stick a little bit closer to the front than Silver is at the moment, and then therefore be slated as the person who holds this emotional pain in the moment, whether Silver realizes it or not. So Silver might think they're the only person fronting in this distressing moment, when secretly there is another alter there who is helping to deal with the situation and deal with the moments. And then that alter who is in the front and technically the holder of all the pain and the emotional memory can then leave the front and take that with them if it is a situation that Silver cannot handle individually. And I hope that helps clear up the question a little bit. This is just how our system functions. Obviously, it will not be applicable to every other system out there.
It is also pertinent to note that while we can control switching in a lot of situations surrounding traumatic incidents, there are some where we simply cannot control what happens, and that emotional memories and pain that should be removed from someone to prevent further traumatization does not, and ends up sticking with an alter. So while we try our best, sometimes even protectors fail at their job, and I felt that it would be very good to note that.
Now we can get back to Silver.
Their next question is, also, I've heard that in most OSDD 1B systems that the host is trauma-free and all other parts are trauma holders. This isn't true for my system. Is it for yours? This is very much not true for our system. Not all of our parts hold trauma. Only very few of them, only very specific ones do. I'm not trauma-free either. The levels of trauma that I hold are low enough where I'm able to function in daily life, while larger amounts of trauma that I can't deal with and still be able to function are held by other alters. I know there's still definitely alters that don't hold trauma. I know Iris doesn't hold trauma. Lorianne doesn't hold trauma. There's definitely alters that I know for sure that they don't hold trauma. So yeah, I actually hold a lot more trauma as host than other alters who aren't host. So it's definitely not true for us. And our next question is from the S'mores system. Hey guys! We know them. They say, what are 3 things that make you and anyone else who wants to answer genuinely happy? The 3 things that make me happy, more than anything else. I miss my partner mode, so I'm gonna say my partner. They just left, like, 2 days ago. Things that make me happy. Animals usually make me very, very happy. I have a wonderful ESA named Cinnamon, who I absolutely adore. She is beautiful and gorgeous and such a baby. She is a ball python, so she's a snake, and she lives with me throughout the year, and I love her very, very much. And then also just creating things with my hands. Like, I think that's obviously why I do YouTube videos. I really love creating things and putting things out in the world that come from my heart. And so seeing those things and seeing them well received and loved by other people makes me very happy inside. Our next question is, how often do you all switch as compared to a DID system or other OSDD systems? For me and my system, one alter can stay at the front for a very long time, usually all day for most, though they get exhausted at the end and it doesn't feel good for the system as a whole, and a few particular can stay out for days or weeks at a time. And I don't know if this is normal or healthy for a system. I myself, our current host and emotional protector, often seem to get stuck up front, which is exhausting and includes depression and anxiety. I think that might be being out for so long that factors into that, since we are a team and we all need each other to function in a healthy way. Love to hear your thoughts and experiences though. Every system has a different natural switching rate, regardless of whether they're DID or OSDD. Our natural switching rate is actually pretty low. We switch anywhere from like 4 to 5 times a day maximum to once every couple days. It really depends on the situation. We also experience a very similar thing to what you're describing, especially during finals period. I will get very, very stressed and I will get front stuck for weeks, and by the end of those weeks, I can slowly just feel the overall system health just like right off the cliff. So we definitely experience that, and I definitely feel you when you tend to get stuck up on front, and it does get exhausting for us at the end of those days too. Typically after like a week of me fronting straight, the rest of the system is like, okay, we're just gonna spend like a day without Silver, which is helps us all recuperate. But yeah, it's different for every system, so it's kind of like a find what feels good for you guys and then aim for that. Our next question is, I wanted to ask y'all, what's your experience like with co-consciousness? Do you ever feel like 2 or more alters are driving the body at the same time? Yes. We actually subscribe to the difference between co-consciousness and co-fronting, where co-consciousness is where one alter is fronting and there's another alter kind of hanging out behind observing what's going on, and co-fronting, where 2 alters are fronting at the same time. This has definitely happened, especially in situations where I'm extremely upset, but I'm holding onto the front, and another alter like Montana is coming in and like manipulating some of the body's limbs to make sure that we are physically safe, while I'm having my emotional breakdown out in the front. Those aren't the best experiences, but they definitely do happen. Our next question is, hey, I was wondering if you know or can clarify the difference between OSDD and depersonalization. Yes, depersonalization is a subset of dissociation, which is a symptom of dissociative disorders. Depersonalization is when you feel not like yourself and when you feel like distanced from your body. This can be a situation with alters like OSDD, or it can just feel like your body is not yours, or like you're not acting like yourself for some reason, and it's a general symptom of dissociation. Depersonalization and dissociation is actually nested into OSDD, whereas those are symptoms of OSDD specific disorders. So if you have OSDD like we do, we experience depersonalization and dissociation as symptoms of OSDD 1B. This person is also asking, what is our experience with alters disappearing? Thanks. When alters disappear, typically they're going dormant. This can happen for a multitude of reasons. We currently have a dormant alter, Chelsea is currently dormant, and Ivy is like half dormant, where she doesn't front much, nearly at all, but every now and then she does stick her head out. Typically they've been neutral experiences for us because there's not too much we can do about it, but I don't know, it just kind of is a thing that happens. The next person asks, at what age does one realize that they have alters or that they are an alter? We are curious since our first encounter was when the body was 9, but we just thought it was our imagination or something. It honestly really varies. Our first experience was when we were around 14 years old, but I have heard of people all the way down to 9, just like you, and I have heard of people all the way into their 20s, their 30s, their 40s, their 50s discovering their systems. It all depends system to system, and their environment, and then how the system is functioning, and whether it decides to reveal itself at the time. It also depends on the alter's role. I figured it out around 14-ish, and I split off around 12 to 13, but I believe Montana has known the entire time she's existed. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Our next question is, do you guys have to deal with different disorders apart from OSDD and also deal with these kinds of bad episodes? The answer is yes. And dissociative disorders as a whole are comorbid with PTSD, as PTSD is a requirement to have DID or OSDD, so obviously we would deal with that, and flashbacks and triggers and all sorts of fun stuff. But also, as a whole, the body is autistic, so, and while that doesn't really come out a lot in the videos because these are highly edited, all of us experience autism differently than other alters, to varying degrees of how much we present it. So we definitely deal with sensory sensitivities and shutdowns and social scripting and all the things that come with being on the autism spectrum. The next person has a subset of 3 questions. Their first question is, do they have any littles? We have one little, her name is Iris, she's about 7. She won't be filming on this channel just for safety reasons, but she does exist. And I'm trying to figure out ways to have her help out with videos in ways that aren't direct. On that's her turtle in the background right there. She named him Mr. Grumpy. Really cute. Our second question from this person is, are any/all of your alters archetypal, such as host, protector, persecutor, etc.? Some of our alters are archetypal, like I'm the host, Montana's a protector, Lily's an emotional protector, Lorian's a caretaker, but some of us don't have archetypes. Mia can kind of be classified as a co-host, but she doesn't really have a role and she's a little bit nebulous, so some of us just kind of exist. Their third question is, would you be willing to share a rundown of all of your alters, active and dormant, and what each does for the system? You can find this list right in the channel description. It should be relatively updated. I don't know if all the ages are correct because I might have put it in before a couple of us aged, but it should be mostly correct. Our next person has a question. They say, I also had a question about memory. Can you have shared memory but also some amnesic moments? For example, can you have shared memory with one alter but also have amnesia barriers for certain events that an alter has experienced, or even shared memory with some alters and amnesia between others? For OSDD1B specifically, there is no day-to-day full blackout amnesia, but for DID, you can have a combination of both. And I think most everyone has a combination of both. You can have full amnesia between specific alters, you can have full amnesia sometimes, or half the time, or partial times, exactly like what you described. That's all classified under DID, but specifically for OSDD1B, there's no full amnesia between alters, and it's all emotional and partial amnesia. Our next person asks, have you or any other alters that you're aware of ever come out and introduced yourself to someone? Then, months to over a year later, that same alter comes out again and introduces themselves to the same person. Okay, so this is an instance of the alter introducing themselves twice to a person, assuming that the alter forgot. People with DID and OSD are also, obviously it's a memory disorder, so they can still be very forgetful. We're still very forgetful. I will even forget people that I've known for a very long time sometimes. So yes, this is very possible. I don't know if this happens specifically to us, because I'm already so bad at memory, I wouldn't remember this happening, but there have definitely been people who've come up to me and tried to talk to me, and I've had no idea who they are. And they know me, but I don't know them. And we don't experience full amnesia. It's just been between forgetfulness between alters. So yeah. Our next person asks, as a fellow OSDD 1B system, how did y'all come out as a system to y'all's family and friends? I feel called out because I have yet to come out to my roommate. But we're getting there. The first time we came out to friends, I actually made a 30-slide PowerPoint presentation explaining the whole disorder and like giving a rundown of the alters, and it was really over the top. But this time, I think I'm just going to have a short conversation. I came out to my partner, not in a small conversation. I actually came out to them because we're both in the same mental health activism network, so it was more common knowledge that I have OSDD 1B among that group of people, and they heard because I was talking to a group of people about it at the time. And then we had more conversations afterwards about OSDD 1B and how it impacted us. And our last question of the day is there any sort of advice you'd give to new systems? And this is a little bit hard because it's been a very long time since I discovered the system, but I guess my advice would be to not be afraid. I know it's so scary and disorienting and new and a lot right now, but my advice is to breathe, because with time it'll all shake out. You will be able to find the community you want, and you'll be able to get to know your system better, and you'll be able to find the right healing path for you. And eventually you'll know where you stand, and you know where you are, and you'll feel confident in yourself and your ability to exist here on the earth. My second piece of advice is to just do a whole bunch of research. That's what I did. You can watch YouTube videos, you can go to didresearch.org, you can go to traumadissociation.com. There's a whole bunch of resources out there for you, and they all help you feel less alone while learning a little bit more about DID and OSDD as a whole. And yeah, and that's all of our questions. Thank you so much for sitting through all of this. And again, if you asked a question and I didn't answer it, please comment down below and I will answer it directly. I'm so sorry I missed it. It's been a long ride, but it's been a good one. Thank you all so much for listening, and I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day.